Great to see you all. And yeah, so today I'm gonna give you just a quick intro about myself and Outset. Then I'm gonna jump in and show you a few things. I definitely find that the best way to run these is to have a lot of involvement. So you all can stay off camera, but please do ask questions. So like interrupt or write in the chat or whatever. Like I find that's a super helpful way to engage and make sure that all your questions are answered. So yeah, we got to briefly touch base with Sarah, so we definitely have some context of you all and the firm and what you're looking for, but I'm sure lots of questions will come up. So with that, so I'm as Sarah mentioned, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Outset. My background is in research and strategy as a consultant earlier in my career, and later I've been leading product and design teams out here in Silicon Valley at various tech companies. And so I've really come from both a kind of market and innovation research all the way through to more user and product research. And through all of that, did lots and lots of qualitative work, as everybody here does, but definitely found that one of the most difficult or intractable problems we've all had in the industry for many years is just that qualitative research, while incredibly valuable, is also very slow and very expensive and ultimately results in pretty low sample sizes. And that's always just been a tension of our methodologies, right? I think, Sarah, you had mentioned that you guys have done some creative stuff, whether it's discussion boards or whatever, to like kind of hack around that. But it is a kind of, we all know that challenge. And what we found early on, we started working, my co-founder and I started working together right around when ChatGPT was first launched back at the end of 2022, I guess that is. And we launched this product in the first half of last year, 2023. And what we found was that large language models were particularly good at actually leading and conducting conversation, right? Because they are themselves conversational technologies. That is what they're great at. It's called ChatGPT, right? Because it can chat, because it's conversational. And that, especially at the time, got around some of the challenges of applications where it was all, lots of hallucinations and the challenge of being precise and all those issues, that actually you put it in this moderator seat and it was immediately quite impressive. And so we took that nugget. We're like, okay, like we believe there is something here and there will be more here, that we built this AI moderated research platform. We launched with our first major enterprise customer, Weight Watchers, back early last year. And then since then, we have worked with many different consulting firms and enterprises to kind of be their provider of AI moderated research. What that means is that you set up a guide, you then administer it just like you would a survey. And I'll show you all this, but just to give you an overview, you administer it like a survey. You can recruit people directly from our platform if you want. And then once you've administered it and you get hundreds of conversations done in a matter of hours, right? Then you can also use our AI tools to help synthesize it and break it back down, right? As if you're going to do these quick turn, qual with more sample, you also need the ability to analyze it quickly. Otherwise, you're not going to get the speed that you need out of it. And the other big thing that kind of we found is like, well, hey, large language models are trained in many different languages. And so in addition to that speed and scale, can also easily start doing qualitative research in different languages. And that's, as we found that, we were like, wait, that's a really big unlock. Because as I think back to my past when I've done international work, it's like minimum an extra 20K per market for moderators, for translation services, for all of those components. And we built that all in native. So, all right, so that's my quick overview. And I'm happy as I go, I can give you more examples or just, chime in with questions. So why don't I start us off with just showing you what one of our modes of interviewing looks and feels like. This is called a video response interview. So I'll just take this real quick. I can provide obviously I'm asked for consent to be recorded. Make sure your setup is appropriate. And then you can start your interview. And again, this is the participant experience. Here, as a part of our video response interviews, which is one of our modalities, AI gives me questions in text on the left side, and then I can record my responses to those questions. And then AI reacts with the subsequent question. So I'll go ahead and say, okay, I'm ready to get started. And then that is sent back to AI, and AI gives me a next question. So it says, great, to start off, do you have any nutrition or wellness goals you aim to achieve? If so, describe what they are. Okay, so I'm going to give it an answer, but to make up a new answer, since John, you're on camera, I'm going to put you on the hot seat here. Can you come up with a good answer here? Like, give me some inspiration to respond to this question. I want to bulk up by 10 pounds. So I'm looking for weightlifting and really a bodybuilding right now. But I'm also trying to cut down my BMI by 7. It's like, I think that's the right unit. I don't know. I was like, I don't know what classic John means. I'm now curious what what that means here.
Yeah.
So so here you can see, sounds like an ambitious goal. So basically, what AI will respond with, it will recognize what you've said, right? Either by, saying something like that's an ambitious goal, and then it will probe deeper based on what you've said. So can you tell me more about how you plan to achieve both the bulking up and cutting down your BMI? Any specific strategies? So I'll give it. Yeah, my current strategies are to go to the gym twice a day for 5 days a week. So I'm going 2 a days. And in terms of diet, I'm trying to go kind of high protein, low carb. And we'll let it respond to that. Okay, so here it says that sounds like a solid plan. Let's move on to the next question. And for this next question, this is a more evaluative style of question, right? So this is where you're offering the participants something to react to. In this case, this is a concept, a snack concept that we're testing, and we're asking for reactions to it. So I'll stop the interview here because it's nice to show just a little back and forth up front, and then what this kind of stimulus-based question is like. But you can upload videos here. You can use images, GIFs. You can send them to a separate site to check something out and get those reactions. And so it's very much an ability to capture qual as well as quant data about someone's kind of reactions to things. So I'd say about 50% of the studies on Outset have some evaluative component to it. Right? So we do a lot of concept testing for R&D teams or innovation pipelines, as well as like a lot of comms testing and marketing testing, value props, things like that. Even if there's a more generative project, you often just find it helpful to get a little bit of reaction to something. So that's a lot of the work we do with our customers. This is actually modeled after some of like the Nestle work we do, which is part of their innovation pipeline with snack concepts. Don't worry, this is not actually a Nestle snack concept. This was all generated by AI, but this is the kind of modeled after that. Cool. So usually, I see there's chat, so I'm just gonna try to keep up. Okay, just laughing. Cool. So usually the question from there is like, what were the inputs to that? Right? This is not where you just give it AI some, a couple of sentences and let it go free, but rather this is a much more, it is a discussion guide that you create. Just like you would if you're hiring a moderator, right? A discussion guide that you create with a certain set of kind of instructions and constraints and questions. And so I'll walk you through that right now. So when you're setting up a guide, first you're going to have a couple of settings. So you're going to choose the interview method. So this is where we talked about, or I mentioned video response as one of these modes. You can also do voice response, which is similar to what I just showed you, but without the video. You could also do voice to voice, which is where you're actually talking back and forth with AI, and there is no text involved. It's just AI's voice. And I'm happy to share that. Maybe we can come back to that towards the end if we have time, just as another cool kind of demonstration of the participant experience. And you can also do screen share. So that is where not only do you want them to go to react to some prototype or some live site, but you can actually have them share their screen, right? Which means you as the researcher can collect that data afterwards. Great for usability, or testing kind of digital products, things like that. Cool. Okay, so just to keep going here, as you're setting up your guide, the other thing you can do is set a language. So you can allow the participant to choose language, or you can just set one up yourself. Usually people are actually setting it up themselves because they may, let's just say, recruit in 4 or 5 markets for one study, and you'll just create your kind of guide in English and maybe duplicate it, run one in English, one in Spanish, one in French, one in German, if you're doing a project across Europe, for example. But if I just set it as Spanish, I won't go through all of it, but if I just set it as Spanish and then I go ahead and test that interview, everything is now going to be in Spanish, right? Everything from the buttons and the titles and the instructions, but very importantly, and the moderation. So the questions, the way it reacts, how it probes deeper, all of that will be in Spanish. And so that has really been a big unlock for a lot of customers of just being able to kind of run this simultaneously in 4 markets. So I'll skip here down to the actual guide itself. So then, the way that you structure a guide is you're offering a set of questions, just like you would with a human moderator, right? Like you give a set of questions. And the expectation is that you're going to ask those questions in a way that's fluid with the conversation and that it will probe deeper depending on that context. So for example, you saw, this is the, do you have any nutritional wellness goals? It will fluidly kind of transition into it, as I think it did. It said, great, thanks for, doing this for the first question, and then it tells you the question. But then beyond that, you don't have to do anything here. AI will naturally be very good at knowing when to follow up, right? If somebody is not given a complete answer or they're giving kind of like just a crappy answer, it will probe deeper naturally. But you can do quite a lot to actually instruct it as well. So you can go to these interviewer instructions and you can set standard or deeper exploration, which kind of affects how many times and how deep it will go within these questions. There's an open-ended field where you could just give broad instructions to AI to say, hey, maybe you want to probe deeper into the why or into specific examples, or you want to like say, if they bring up X, then talk about Y, right? There's all sorts of ways you can kind of offer it probing instructions and even allow the interviewer to skip questions based on different conditions. And then you can also, if this is a conversational, kind of a normal question, but you can also add multiple choice questions. So you maybe want that quant-qual mix. You want to get some closed-ended data at the same time you're having these conversations. And that pops up a normal multiple choice. It's not just over audio. And then lastly, you can see this next question is take a look at the concept visual. You can add any kind of stimulus as well here. So you can upload a file, you can add a URL, however you want to get them to react to something. So once we've created this, right, we have our guide. Maybe we want to test it a few times. Firstly, you can add some section randomization if you want to do monadic style testing where you have 10 concepts and show each person 3 of them. We can administer that for you. And then you can go ahead and test the interview yourself, or send it to some coworkers to try it out. And you can even send, I'll just jump ahead here, you can even send AI through it as AI participants, just as synthetic data, to help you keep testing your discussion guide, right? It might give you a good sense. You could say, hey, I want to have 20 AI interviews with AI just to see how the guide works. How well does it go? But then you're ready to really start administering this. So you create a screener. So you can create a screener in our platform. There's nothing particularly fancy about that, but it's a normal screener where you offer a set of questions with some conditional logic of how to disqualify people. And then you can recruit through us. So you can either recruit on your own. That's where you get the shareable link, and you can send it. Maybe you're working with your own panels that you have relationships with, or even not very often, but maybe clients have their own lists or kind of their user base or customers that they want to talk to. You could do that. Or you can recruit via Outset. And here we have 2 different panels that are hooked up, integrated into our platform. So what that means is you can recruit from these panels just using the tools here without having a separate MSA or separate relationship with them. And we've also kind of found panels and helped find the right, call it quality price point mix that we found works really well with AI moderated research, right? You want reasonably high quality, but you also want low enough cost that you can scale it. And so these are 2, and I'm happy to go deeper into either of these. Cool. So in terms of the number of participants, there is no limit that we generally recommend keeping it under 500, just for the sake of kind of spacing it out. So I wouldn't do more than 500 at once. But yeah, there is not an explicit limit. So I'd say the average is about 100 to 150 per project. But we see people go all the way down to 40 or 45, 50 for some really quick turn qual where scale is really not a critical thing, is really not going to change the deal, but you're still getting some good scale with 40, right? Versus, then we see some that are 300, right? We just did one 2 days ago, it was 400, and those interviews were 60 minutes, right? So 60-minute, 400 people all run in a day. And yes, you can link this platform into a standard survey. So that is what we'll save more of those details for a longer conversation about that. But people all the time integrate us with other survey tools. So you can send people here from a Qualtrics survey and pass along some metadata, and we'll pass it back, and all of that kind of integration can work just fine. Cool. And then yes, okay. So in terms of quality controls, let me actually take a quick step back and talk about the participant experience, and then let's zoom into quality. So in terms of participant experience, we've done a lot of research on what participants experience this platform and AI moderated research to be. And what they say is that this is like a more engaging survey. That is their experience with it. Now, when you ask our customers or researchers, the answer is like, this is giving us like real in-depth qualitative data in a way that we're used to with interviews, right, and traditional qual methods. But the participants feel this as an asynchronous, a survey-like experience that's simply more engaging. So I think from that lens, we've been really, really happy with the participant experience because it's like the analogy for them is a boring static survey that gets really tiring. And this actually responds to that. So in terms of quality, the vast majority of the work that people do with Outset has voice and video. So that's one quality check, right? You can't just have ChatGPT answering if you're using your voice or video. Or if you do, that's so much work that like to then say what ChatGPT is telling you, it's almost not worth it, right? So that is a natural defense. A second defense we have against lower quality is that AI will probe. If you give a nonsense answer to AI, it will probe more, right? It's like, oh, I'm so sorry, you must have misunderstood my question. What I was trying to ask you, and it's like it's actually infuriating to try to speed run an AI interview. It like takes longer to try to give crappy answers than it is to give real ones. And so that's another defense. And then the third defense we have is that we have a fraud detection system that we've built ourselves that look for kind of signals of things being more likely fraud. They are alerted in our system. We let you know. We'll remove it if it's obvious. Otherwise, we'll tell you. We do that. And that's not and this is before you even get into these panels themselves have a lot of quality controls over time, right? So they kick out people who are not, who get low scores and things like that. In terms of the drop-off, it's a little hard to say because different studies are different, right? So drop-off, when you run a giant survey that's free, right? Meaning you're not paying them anything. Obviously, drop-off is much higher, right? If the studies are well paid or well incentivized, like through these platforms, the drop-off is much lower. So there's not a single number, but we've certainly found that fatigue rates and drop-off rates are much better than a static survey, right? So on a normal prolific study, you'll get 90% will have completed. You'll have 10% drop-off. But if it's longer, maybe that goes up by some. So let me keep rolling through some of these pieces because I want to make sure to hit everything. But these are great questions. Thank you for jumping in. Okay, so you've run this thing. All right, so you ran 200 interviews and you're done. You then get raw results. Here, I'll actually jump into one that's I'll jump into one that's a completed interview, not like the one that I just did, which was obviously not complete. And you'll get a full transcript with every back and forth and everything the participants said. And each of these is a video or an audio clip that you can play, you can download, you can bookmark. All of this media is of course, yours at this point. We also offer an AI summary so that you can see just in a couple of sentences what they are talking about, what they're thinking about. And then you get all the metadata that's passed through. So whether there's an ID or name, email, whatever you've kind of captured on them. So that's kind of where you basically start, right? So you kind of have your raw data. It's all, you kind of see it all in this results tab. These are mostly just me doing demos and tests so that you don't see as much data in here. You can also even upload metadata to link up. If you want to merge data sets, you can. So if you want to like bring demographic data that you hold separately into our system, you can upload that as well. Okay, cool. Then you've done all of these interviews. You can see some of them. You're like, okay, the transcripts look good. So let's like see what we can really take away from this study. So now we have two kind of areas that you can get the synthesized results. There's an automated insights tab, and this is just running in the background all the time, right? It doesn't take any input from you to create this report. It just is created. AI, we have to make some assumptions about what's interesting to you, what you care about, and so we're going to kind of break that down for you. But then you can build custom reports, which is really digging into what you want to know. So we kind of have both, right? So this insights page will give you an executive summary. It'll offer some ideas for highlights for you, right? So potential takeaways that you may find interesting, you may find worthwhile. And then it breaks down findings by looking at your guide, the questions that you've covered. So in these findings is really where we start breaking down the quantitative side of this qualitative data. So for example, there was a question that we asked about on what occasions would you eat the snack? AI took all the answers and was able to produce this code frame, right? This set of thematic categories. Social gatherings, on-the-go snacking, casual relaxation, etc., were developed, were generated by AI. And then then AI goes and tags every conversation with the appropriate one or multiple of these thematic categories. And then, we get these numbers. So we're not having AI count them. We're actually having AI just tag them. And then we're counting them on kind of, using normal engineering. And what you're able to do then is see all of the quotes in this case that have to do with, for example, social gatherings, right? So now I can just
in the evening
look at
is
this
when
quote.
I'm the least busy, and so I am able to take a moment and have a snack.
Right. So both of these, kind of all of these are different quotes from all the different people. And so that's all fitting within the social gathering category. We also offer some ideas for some insight nuggets, some maybe surprising, kind of smaller but interesting findings that are emerging. And then the last piece I'll mention is the chat with your data. And so in this case, we wrote a message about trying to dig deeper into the visual appeal point that they pointed out. And AI and the chat response gives you a pretty kind of well-structured qualitative breakdown of the different kind of insights and findings, as well as links to a whole bunch of different quotes and transcripts that you can check out. And then you have the custom reports. And I won't go too deep, as we could spend a whole session on this, but this is where you can actually articulate the questions that you want AI to go answer, right? For example, what wellness goals did they have? That's maybe something you're curious about, and you can articulate that. You set up this report, you pose these questions, AI breaks it down. You can do things like crosstabs, you can build segments. This is a different segment, so it kind of has its own independent report. You can export stuff. So there's a lot you can kind of do in this more manipulatable or more customizable experience. So in terms of hallucinations, so in this world of kind of quantifying the qualitative data, not all tags are perfectly done, but of course that's a subjective exercise. Like to some degree, no two humans will tag 100 transcripts with dozens of themes in the exact same way. There's a little bit of wiggle room, and almost always when somebody's like, I wouldn't have tagged it that way, I'll basically we'll look and like, I can see the case, right, why AI would do that, just like two humans, which is why we launched this ability to manually edit tags, again, in custom reports. So if you do disagree, right, with AI's judgment call, you can always do that. Chat with your data, we don't see hallucinations in the kind of old school way to think about them, like it just made something really weird and unrelated up. But it is all subjective, right? So you may see it bring up a point that you didn't think was as salient for the question you asked. And that's just part of the iteration process. I see there's a question about extracting reports. Oh. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways you can export. So you can export the kind of an Excel version with all of the transcripts on them. You can export an Excel version of a custom report. So that's where all the tags, all the graphs that you saw there are all in Excel. So you could actually run your own versions of that. You can also get all the video files, both as full videos or as clips that you can download. And you can also get all the transcripts in text files, which can easily be converted to Word docs. So kind of TXT files is how you can. So anyways, all of those, if you can come up with, also you can do PDF of custom reports. So if you have any other ideas of exports, we'll do it. So we definitely have customers who are doing that kind of thing, where you're basically Outset is one component of different phases with the same people. I'd say it doesn't happen as often, right? It's just a little bit harder to administer, right? That you're just kind of keeping these people, for multiple different phases and using different methodologies. But we're often used as a part of several methodologies for a project, right? So maybe a little bit more frequent would be we do, a handful of IDIs ourselves just to wrap our minds around the problem space. Then we're going to do a big Outset one, which kind of gives you a qual and quant. And then maybe at the end, we want to do another thing to dig in, another Outset, smaller one to dig into one issue with one group or something like that. They're usually recruited independently, so we don't see as much of that. But, some of it. But please send them through. And yeah, I love engaging on this stuff. And yeah, we'd love to kind of keep exploring how we can partner together.